Bad yogis, we're back at it again. How do we know when to follow our gut intuition or our instinct? That brings up a very interesting question for me. Where did we first learn to discount our intuition, our gut instinct, our imagination, our curiosity? Where did we first learn that what was being shared with us internally was wrong, was to be shut down, was to be hidden, was to be played in the background but maybe ignored? Where did we first learn that? And maybe by exploring where you learned that, what age you were, how old you were, the feelings at that time, the emotions, the sensations, the environment, the stories that you created at those moments where you felt a sense of maybe shame and or fear about your intuition, your gut instinct, your curiosity, your imagination, your perspective on life. Where did you first learn to hide from that? And maybe by finding where we learn to hide from that at different moments in our life, maybe that answers the question as to how do we know when to follow our gut instinct or our intuition? What if it's a possibility that where we learned to not follow it is what comes up in the moment when it comes in that helps us discount our intuition, our instinct, and sidestep it and maybe move from a more logical, safe, familiar place? What if we said that intuition or gut instinct comes to different human beings in different forms? Some of us maybe hear it, others feel it, maybe others picture it, and maybe others simply know it. And there's probably 50 to 1,000 more ways to experience your own intuitive process and how that comes into you. And where did you learn to discount that knowing? Where did you learn to hide from it? So to get to the meat and potatoes of this question for me is considering the perspective of how do we functionally start to parent ourselves? And for me, one of those answers around parenting self is, well, can we consider the challenges and the benefits that come with always following our gut intuition or considering our gut intuition? What are the benefits of following your intuition? What are the challenges of following your intuition? What are the benefits of following your logical mind? And what are the benefits or challenges of not following your logical mind? And if you can kind of look at the challenges and benefits, it helps you gain maybe a wider understanding of the challenges and benefits of both. My experience being a human being on this planet is the design team gifted us with a mind, gifted us with a heart, maybe that's our intuition or intuitive process, gifted us with a brain, and gifted us with a synergy between those two or three aspects. So I think there are times, at least for me, in which, it makes logical sense to do something in this literal realm and considering the grounded perspective, and that comes with its own challenges and benefits. There's also times where my intuitive hits. I follow those, and those come with challenges and benefits. So the answer to the question is, when do we know when to follow our gut intuition? For me, is a question to you. How do you know? When do you know? And when did you start to discount that knowing? When did you start to look external of self to find your answers? The intuitive lens for me comes in full packages. I'll use myself as an example. I went to teach a retreat in Denmark in August, and I taught for a few days, and then I was exploring Copenhagen by myself. I was walking around, and I paused, looked around, and I had this overwhelming knowing and feeling and sensation throughout my whole body that I needed to move to Denmark. And I've been really practicing following my intuitive hits, my feeling, my emotion. And a month later, I moved to Denmark. I think in the new age, spiritual, mental, and emotional worlds, I think there's a story that's created around intuition and an intuitive process, at least from my perspective, is that it's always going to lead you to rainbows and skipping on water and everything is going to work out great. And I'd offer the perspective that sometimes, in my experience, your intuition can lead you into the deepest, darkest places of yourself, as well as into the most challenging experiences you've ever had in your life. For me, following your intuition does come with challenge and does carry a shadow, an unknown aspect to it. So does following the logical mind. So how do you know when to follow your gut? You simply know. I don't think it's a question that someone else can answer for you. As you start to explore the background around why you don't follow your intuitive process, why you don't follow your instincts, and where you learn to discount yourself, an interesting thing starts to occur, at least in my experience, is that as you start to dissolve those past stories, you also start to dissolve the story of discounting yourself through discounting your intuition and or your instinct. What if our desire, need, and or want to discount our intuition is actually a familiar pattern that we learned discounting ourselves or feeling and experiencing discounted in our past? And we've grown up now and simply are proliferating that behavior in the here and now. Another interesting perspective to consider is, I wonder if it's a possibility that if we're always following gut instinct and intuition, I wonder if it's a possibility that sometimes to bring that into balance, we might want to use our logic. We might want to ground that. That might bring that person into balance, interestingly enough. As something to consider. I'm not saying it's true, not true. I think it's a fascinating consideration. On the opposite polarity, the grounded gopher, who is always using logic and is very rigid and stuck in only using logic, that person might need to invite a little bit more intuitive process into their life to help them create balance. What if the ultimate guidance system is allowing our mind or our logic and our intuition to work together synergistically rather than opposing forces? I don't know. And I'm really curious about that. I've been really curious about following my intuition, my feelings, my gut instinct, my initial spark. Because in my past, maybe for about 35 years, I've been hiding, contorting, shifting, presenting, fitting in, needing approval. And not to say I don't need those things anymore. That still happens at subtle levels and at sometimes overt levels. But for me to bring myself into balance, I've been really practicing following my sensations, my emotions, and my intuition as I experience it in these whole pieces, these whole stories that come in. My intuitive hits come in as an entire story that then I notice I need to create the rationalization to understand. So noticing and considering the perspective that every single human being on the planet is exquisitely intuitive, and that our egos have to work very hard to control that intuition, because intuition, as far as I'm aware, is outside of the ego's control. So it has to block it as much as it possibly can. So, if every human is exquisitely intuitive, and in parts and parcel, we're each blocking our own intuition, potentially based on our experiences of the past, maybe the way to invite more intuitive experience and more intuitive clarity into your life is through dissolving stories of the past to find and feel and emote and connect and hear with your heart your intuition. It's my perspective that your intuition can never guide you in the wrong place, or to the wrong place, or into the wrong situation. Our interpretation of our intuition can become quickly distorted by our ego. My guess is each and every one of us know exactly what to do in any given moment. We know exactly what to do intuitively, immediately, as soon as the situation arises. And as soon as that hit arises, notice the rational mind kick on and start to create story and attachment and this and that and why I can't do it and why I shouldn't do it or why I should do it. But there's an initial intuitive hit, my experience, on everything. What inhibits us from following it at times is our fear and or our shame about what it represents to us. It's so far out of our ego's control. Again, last invitation. Maybe to allow more intuition in and more clarity around what your intuition is sharing with you is to dissolve the stories of the past that have created the distortion in which you experience your intuition and or in which you block your intuition, which makes a part of you afraid to follow it all the time. And there will always be challenges and benefits, no matter which path you take. At least that's my opinion. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was confusing. I hope I get some good thumbs down and maybe a few thumbs up. I followed my intuition in sharing this video because my rational mind and my logical mind said, don't do this, Jator. Don't share what your truth is and what your experience is. Hide yourself. So I followed my intuition on this one, as I invite myself frequently to do. And here we are. Be kind to yourselves. And thank you for checking this out. I'll see y'all next week. Peace.